Good morning, everyone. Here we are with the last lesson for this week. Today we're going to continue with the Cambridge Checkpoint book. If you're ready, let's start. To start first with our objectives, first we're going to have, as usual, by the end of each week, some spelling words that you need to practice. After that, we will have to discuss how to choose a title. After that, we're going to continue with how to write a blurb. We're going to explain the meaning of blurb, giving examples about that. Next, we're going to have ways to start a story. We're going to suggest more than one way to make it more interesting. And after that, we're going to have the past tenses in stories, how to use each past tense in stories. Finally, we're going to have common errors in writing. Let's begin with our 15 words that we need to know their spelling in addition to their meaning. Starting with the first one, cathedral. Cathedral is a big church. Number 2 and 3 are already dealt with when we explained Unit 9, types of bridges. So, aqueduct is the one that contains water. Number 4 is orchard. Orchard is basically a big garden, or we can say it's a group of planted trees. Number 5 is hexagonal prism. As we explained, the word hexa in Greek means 6, so this is the shape that contains 6 angles. The following word is exaggerated. When people exaggerate, they make things bigger than they are. Then we have the word administrator. Administrator means manager. Continuing with the word illustration. Illustration is when you make something clearer. Then we have curiosity. When you are curious, you want to know more about things. Then we have another adverb, which is accurately. Accurately means correctly or precisely. The following word is climax. We talked about climax when we explained crisis. It associates with crisis. So it means the highest point where event can reach. If you remember when we explained the 5 stages of storytelling. Then we have the word ellipsis. Ellipsis is a type of punctuation, the 3 dots that you have, which mean that there is something deleted or something to be continued. Then we have the word syllable. A syllable is a small part of a word. It's usually dealt with in phonetics with a sound system. Then we have the word evocative. Evocative can mean powerful or expressive. And finally, we have the word treachery. Treachery simply means betrayal. At the beginning of this unit, we learned the process of writing a story, starting with the stages, starting with the first one, which is having a setting, then characters, then having a problem, taking it to a crisis, ending up with the resolution. Here, we will learn how to write an effective title. A title is essential for any literary work since it's the first thing read by the reader. So, as long as you make it powerful and good, it would be better for your writing. So, we have some rules or suggestions you have to follow when you write your title. Starting with the first one, titles shouldn't be longer than 5 words. If you have 1 word, 2 words, up to 5, it's very good. More than that, it wouldn't be that good. Number 2, the title should be interesting and intriguing, but never should give events or outcomes away. What does that mean? You shouldn't reveal the ending of your story through your title. We have 2 examples here. The War of the Worlds is better than the death of a warrior. Why is it better? We're going to mention the reasons. In the first one, you're giving the reader something interesting, that you have a war, something is going to happen. However, you didn't give any details. What will happen at the end? While in the second one, the death of a warrior, from the beginning, you're losing your suspense since you're giving the ending that the warrior is going to die by the end of this. So it's always better to keep the suspense and keep the reader wanting to know what's going to happen next. If he knows the ending from the beginning, he wouldn't be interested in reading. Number three, it's something optional. It is good but not necessary to have alliteration. So when you say the War of the Worlds, WW, yes, alliteration is the repeating of the consonant sounds at the beginning of words. So it makes it better. Why? Because you would remember it easier as a reader. Moving on to the last thing, all the nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs should be capitalized, while grammatical words like preposition and articles shouldn't be capitalized. What does that mean? If you have, of course, the last one is not applied when you have it as the first word when I talk about preposition and articles. You have this example, the Lord of the Rings. That is capitalized. Why? We said articles shouldn't be capitalized, but it's the first word, as we said, it's an exception. Lord and rings, nouns, they should be capitalized, while of and the are not capitalized. Why? Because they are preposition and article. A very important thing you would know if you're writing a book would be how to write a blurb. What's a blurb? A blurb is the text on the back cover of the book. It is a summary of the story. It aims to get the readers interested in buying or reading the book. So that would be a very important thing to you. You want people to read your book. So there are important things that you need to know about blurb. To start with the first one, we already knew it when we said the definition. It's the part written on the back cover. The important thing that you would know is, although it's a summary, it shouldn't give away exactly what will happen or the endings, because in this case, they will only read the blurb and that's it. No other thing need to be done. Then, it mentions the characters and their situations to make them interesting, but again, will not give any other details, not the important details anyway. And finally, it always ends, or let's say often ends, with a question mark or ellipses. And by now you should know the meaning of ellipses, which is the three dots by the end, which means there is something to be continued or something missing here. Here we have an example for blurbs. It's the back cover of a very well-known novel and later made a movie, Harry Potter. So what did the writer write or the author write at the end of this? Let's see and find out. Harry Potter thinks he is an ordinary boy until he is rescued by a beetle-eyed giant of a man, enrolls at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, learns to play Quidditch, and does battle in a deadly duel. The reason? You see the ellipses that we talked about? They're putting these 3 points or these 3 dots to show that there is something else, that nothing has been told here. You would know what are these duels, what are the fights that he's going to have. So Harry Potter is a wizard. This is going to be very interesting thing. An important thing would be how to begin your story. How should you start to attract your reader's attention? This is a very important thing. Well, you know already when we talked about the stages of story writing, we knew that we start with the setting to describe the surroundings, to describe the time, the place, everything. However, there are other ways that can be considered also as exciting for the reader to have. So here we're going to give you some of them. The first one is the basic one that we talked about to describe the setting. The second one is to start with a description for the characters, the important characters that you're starting with. Other two ways are different. First one, you start in the middle of speech. The first line is going to be a speech. Why would that be important? Because you feel that there is something different here. So let's see this example. I believe it could be completely dangerous to join you in this mission. When you start the story with this, the reader will be, okay, there will be mission. There is something really interesting here. I should proceed writing or proceed reading, sorry. So, you start with it, and later you can give your setting and everything else that you want to give, because setting should be given. After that, we have another way to start in the middle of the action. Here you have Mr. Jones arrived to the crime scene, trembling and having a heavy breath, asking how it happened. So, starting the story directly with a crime scene, that should be something very interesting to read. These ways are just suggestions for you if you want to start writing. Now, there is something that is different between writers. Some people write in past simple, some people write usually in present simple. However, you can shift tenses in your stories. How? Usually, when you have past tenses, we have four past tenses that you need to understand. Starting with the first one, it would be weird when you first read it. It's going to be present perfect. Well, how is present perfect a past tense? You would know while we read this. The present perfect is used when the action is not completed or when the time an action took place is not given. So what does that mean? It started in the past, but it's not completed. Okay? So the example would be, I have seen them before. He has almost finished. Started in the past, but not completed yet. Past simple. It's the second one. What's past simple? It's used when the action was completed at specific or understood time. So when you say, I did it yesterday, you know exactly that yesterday was the time you finished this, or yesterday's evening here. Number three is past perfect. We explained most of these tenses when we were dealing with Global English. However, it's just a revision. Past perfect, when we talk about perfect tenses, as we said, it means have, has, had. So past perfect definitely means had. So the past perfect is used when an action was completed before another action in the past. So to give you this hint, it's always used with before and after. So this example, I had visited the house many times before the night I heard the strange noise in the attic. So notice that I had visited. This one happened before the other action. Finally, which we explained this week, was past continuous. Past continuous is used for an action that was ongoing before it was interrupted by another action. So it's usually used with when and while. The example here, I was watching television when there was a knock at the door. So he was doing something and it was interrupted by another thing. This is something that you need to know. Here, we're going to give the formula for each one of these tenses so that you wouldn't mix them up. The first one to start with is present perfect. We said perfect tenses mean have, has, had. So when we have present, it means has or have. The formula would be a subject plus has or have, as we know, has for singular, have for plural, then past participle. The verb should be past participle. Example, I have seen him before. You see, have and seen. Why did we choose have, not has? Because I takes have. The second tense is past simple. In past simple, you have simply a subject and a verb. The verb should be ed form, the past. But don't forget that there are some verbs that are irregular, like the verb we have in the example here. I saw him yesterday. Just saw. If it was another verb which is regular, it could have been, for example, I watched the TV yesterday. Moving on to the third one, past perfect. The formula would be subject, as we said, perfect tenses. So we would have had, subject plus had plus past participle. I had seen him, as we said, used with after or before. I had seen him before he was able to feel my presence. Finally, past continuous. The formula, as you know, would be subject plus was or were plus a verb in ing, always. So, was for singular, were for plural. I was coming when the police stopped me. I was coming, look, and then it was interrupted by the police stopping me. A mini test should be done to test our ability in recognizing each tense. Starting with the first sentence, I would like you to stop the video and do the 4 sentences. Then I will give you the answers to see if we're able to do that or not. So, the first one, they killed the victim yesterday. Notice here that we have killed, only killed, without any auxiliaries. Something happened in the past and finished, that's it. So it is past simple tense. After that we have she had done it before the bell rang. Notice here that we have had done. When we say had, it means perfect tenses, yeah? So this would be past perfect. Number 3, they were playing while somebody interrupted them. There is an interruption here, in addition to having were plus ing. You remember that we said every time we have ing, it means it's a continuous tense. So this one is going to be past continuous. Finally, they have brought the gold. What do you think this one would be? It's definitely present perfect. How? Because we have plus the past participle of the verb brought. Reaching the last point of our lesson today, our book provided us with some errors done by people. So we need to be aware of these errors in order to avoid them when we write. To start with 2 types, grammar errors, grammatical ones, and punctuational ones. So with the first one related to grammar, people sometimes say, me and my friend, which is completely wrong. It should be my friend and I. Why? Because it's a subjective case. You say, my friend and I went to the hospital. It's not correct to say, me and my friend went to the hospital. Number 2, never start a sentence with and, but, and so. These 3 conjunctions were meant to be to link, to connect sentences, not to be in the beginning of a sentence. Number 3, sometimes people forget the irregular plurals like tooth, they say tooths. So you should be aware to remember that it's teeth. We had many examples in a previous lesson. Number 4, confusing words that are pronounced the same. The homonyms, as you know. So where and where are both like the same pronunciation, but spelling is different. Always be alerted when you write to such mistakes. Moving on to punctuational mistakes, start with the first one. People often use the or forget to use the speech marks in dialogue, in speeches. So always remember to put the speech marks. Number 2, forgetting capital letters like writing I instead of I, the small letter instead of the capital letter, or writing names without capitalization. A huge mistake, should be always avoided. Finally, we have some words that are made of 3, not 1, like a lot of, and in front of, and in fact, too. So you shouldn't stick all these letters together. This would be a mistake. In the end of this lesson and this week, you have some tasks to do. You have 3 or 4 exercises to do. The first one is going to be page 39, exercise 3. The other one would be page 40, exercise 4. Page 41 contains two important exercises, 6 and 7. I really hope that you try to solve these exercises. They're going to be of a huge benefit for you. Thank you so much again for watching.